Well, happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to Central Library. My name is John Zabo. I'm city librarian, have the great privilege of being city librarian here at the Los Angeles Public Library, and it is always a good day when John Lewis is able to bring folks together, and today is certainly that. We are so very proud. We're honored to share with you today one of our library's most recent acquisitions, and we acquire many, many things, this incredible portrait of the civil rights icon and legendary American and good man, Representative John Lewis. Congressman Lewis, of course, represented Georgia's 5th Congressional District, and I just have to call out the fact that we have some Atlanta folks here in the room today. I was a proud constituent of Representative Lewis when I was head of the Atlanta Fulton Public Library System, lived in his district, and Councilmember Harris Dawson, Morehouse graduate and also a constituent of Congressman Lewis. Kren Malone, who is the director of this building that we're in, she lived in Atlanta and got her graduate degree from Clark Atlanta. Real proud of all the Atlanta, and are there any other Atlanta connections? All right. Today's event is particularly special for so many reasons, but it is just a few days before Congressman Lewis's birthday. He would have been 82 years old on February the 21st. And it's also special because our libraries throughout the city, and indeed the entire city of Los Angeles, is celebrating African American History Month. And we have so many programs and displays and everything from story times and activities throughout the system. In fact, just in a few minutes, we have a virtual program with Misty Copeland, Angelino, first black ballerina, principal dancer of the American Ballet Company. And we're really excited about that. She's written a brand new, beautiful children's book on black ballerinas. She'll be talking about that. So we'll try to end the program so you can go and hook up and get in front of a computer to see that. This painting, this beautiful painting of Representative John Lewis depicts him in the Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C. During the nationwide protests and social justice marches over the murder of George Floyd. It was one of his, and I believe was his last public appearance that he made before he died just a couple of months later in 2020. The portrait was originally created by Netflix to use in several episodes of their show Family Reunion. And we'll hear more about the program later from Meg Deloach, the creator and executive producer of Family Reunion, who we are just delighted is with us here today. Netflix offered to give the artwork to the city of Los Angeles, and representatives of LA City Council Districts 8 and 10 recommended that the portrait be gifted to Central Library. Because the library, of course, offers an accessible location to share the portrait with the public. And we couldn't be more thrilled with that idea and that it's being implemented and has been. I think we're the perfect venue to have this artwork, and it serves as a notable and important reminder of John Lewis's life and his work. And in addition to this portrait and the numerous resources in this building about John Lewis's life, there is another connection to the Los Angeles Public Library. And I heard you mention Goosebumps earlier, and this story always gives me goosebumps, and I always try to tell it as many places as I can. A few years after becoming city librarian here in LA, I ran into Representative Lewis at an American Library Association conference. He was so generous with his time with so many constituencies, but he loved librarians, and he was at the American Library Association conference. And I had had a chance to see him a few times when I was in Atlanta, and I let him know that I had moved to LA. And he immediately, the lights went on, and he said, well, you know, my wife was from LA and worked at the Los Angeles Public Library. And I was speechless. I could not believe it. I heard a little bit more about the story. When I came back to LA, I asked our HR director here at the library to find, if he could, it was a long shot, her employment record. He did. And I sent that to Representative Lewis, too, immediately. But she started her career here at the LA Public Library on July 1st, 1959, at our Vernon Branch Library. Vernon, right? Right? Yeah. She started as a messenger clerk, and then she went on to graduate library school, got her library degree, and she came back to LAPL, and she served as a librarian at the Pio Pico branch library. And this was up until the late 60s when John Lewis took her away from us, and they went back to Atlanta. But I want you all to know that all of us, to a person at the Los Angeles Public Library, are just so proud to have that connection. And we're also honored to remind visitors of John Lewis's legacy and to spark interest in learning more about him, which I know that this painting will do, and the civil rights movement in which he played such a vital and central role. And you know, despite being denied a library card as a child in Troy, Alabama, where he was born and grew up, he was a strong supporter of libraries and recognized the power of libraries to influence the communities they serve. And our profession has much to thank Representative Lewis for, and all of the great words that he offered about libraries and just all of the contributions he made to our world, frankly. And so now it is my pleasure to introduce another just tremendous supporter of libraries, our mayor, the mayor of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti.
This is my second press conference today with Curran Price, so he'll indulge me if I repeat myself with a variation, which is these days I've been saying kind of wistfully, this may be the last press conference or press event or event that I'm doing with some pretty extraordinary people I've been able to serve with. John Szabo is one of those, and I want to thank you, John, for being the archetype of not only a librarian, but what a public servant is all about. It has been such a joy to be mayor while you have been our city's librarian. I can think of a half a dozen times in this space and dozens in this library where we have come together to prove what a library can be with the amazing librarians that comprise the system and the employees of our city, to make these job centers, to make them maker spaces, to make them immigration and citizenship spaces, to really make, you know, I sometimes joke that we're turning physically the streetlights into our Swiss Army knives because they're electric car chargers and Wi-Fi, but you're the human Swiss Army knife, that there is a blade or a tool for everything we need to get done under your leadership. And so just I wanted to say publicly, I'm sure we'll get the chance privately to say thank you for enriching my life, my service, teaching me a lot, and being such a wonderful colleague. So let's give John one more round of applause, and all the librarians here. I'm also really excited to be in a library where usually they say shh, and I get to be amplified in the middle of a library. How often do we get to do that? But it is for good reason that we are allowed, because we learned from this great American what Good Trouble was all about. We learned what activism at any age is all about. We learned inside and outside game, how to go from the street into the halls of Congress and to be able to navigate both those and back into the street once again. Too often we find what divides us in this country. Too often, especially now, we look at the things that pull us apart rather than pull us together. And John Lewis, though he fought against the injustices and the racism that was embedded in this country and still in too many places remains, he taught us that we only move forward when we pull together. A lesson, I think, for today as much as it was then, that you have to have a plan and a reason, and you have to lead with your heart. And I love his connection to the library, not just through his amazing wife, who really deserves as much credit as him. All of our partners, spouses, families serve with us. But also, I wanted to pull up this quote. We know all his great quotes with other things, Good Trouble, all that. But my daughter loves the graphic novel, March. And it's about that march so many decades ago. But in it, he talks about growing up. And this is the quote he wrote in this book, this graphic novel. He says, "I loved going to the library. It was the first time I ever saw black newspapers and magazines like Jet, Ebony, the Baltimore Afro-American, or the Chicago Defender. And I'll never forget my librarian." This was long before he married one. This was talking about how, to him, like for all of us, this is the place where doors are unlocked. Sometimes it's in a volume, but the power of this library has been sometimes it's in an image or an inspiration or something that moves us. So it's a real honor to accept this gift. And I want to thank our council leadership. I want to thank Marquise Harris Dawson. I want to thank you, Kern Price, and I want to thank also Mark Ridley Thomas and his team for saying yes, and I want to thank you for donating this. This is the most creative place on the face of Earth, and Meg, you have shown that in your work, which I'm a big fan of. Netflix, which is, I know, headquartered someplace up north, but it's really headquartered here, let's be honest, in LA. We are so proud to have, and to have a new office and department now of civil rights and human rights and equity led by Capri Maddox means that Los Angeles is embedding the good trouble that we will continue to make. And I hope that for young and less young alike, they will walk in here, look at this, maybe pull out that graphic novel or a biography or read, Part in the Waters or something to see what it has meant to write history, not just to read history, and hopefully inspire us to do the same. I love always staying for the entire program, but I'm on child pickup today, so I'm going to have to excuse myself because I think John Lewis would say that, but I love this library. I love you all. Thank you for making this happen. I can't wait to come back and quietly read a book in this space and just breathe in the great American that was John Lewis. Thank you so much. And you want me to introduce? And with that, I'm going to ask one of the two council members who made this all happen, and another joy, but this isn't our last press conference, so I don't have to get weepy yet, but a man who's inspired me through his activism long before, too, he became an elected official, and a former intern of this man, our council member, Marquise Harris Dawson.
One more time for our fearless leader, Mayor Eric Garcetti. May the traffic be kind to you as you make it to Chaco. Listen, I'm excited to be at this event today. I said earlier that I get goosebumps just looking at the painting. Having been a constituent of Mr. Lewis, like our chief librarian, like the director of this library, I was pleased to learn today. And having interned in his office, I will tell you that Mr. Congresswoman Lewis was a great man. I don't think he noticed me in the office. But I was very proud as a member of the Los Angeles City Council in 2018 to host him on a trip to Los Angeles. I think his last trip or his last public trip to LA. And as a part of my hosting duties, I asked him, did he remember me? And like a good politician, he says, "You were from California, right?" And I said, "Yes, Congressman, I was from California." But this is truly an American giant that sits on this photo behind us. I'll say what I said on Channel 35. I remember as a child going to Mount Rushmore and looking at those big giant faces etched in the mountain and knowing the story of how they helped found what we now know as the United States. Well, when I look at this painting, I get the same exact feeling, because John Lewis really forged the America that we now know, that we can sit in a library in the center of this city where on every floor you find people from every part of the earth enjoying the library on an equal basis. You hear from a mayor who is the child of people who immigrated from Mexico, and next you hear from a council member whose family immigrated from the South after getting out of slavery, and followed by another African-American member of the council in a city that has a department on civil rights. All that's kind of got settled on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where John Lewis made such a great sacrifice and showed us how to be great Americans. And I leave all of us with this quote that, my colleague, Councilman Price, and I occasionally have the opportunity to demonstrate in the halls of City Hall. John Lewis always said, when you see something wrong, find a way to get in the way. Find a way to get in the way and make good trouble. Don't just let it go. And you might not win, but find a way to get in the way so that there is a disruption in the status quo when things are not going the way that they should. And so I want to, again, thank the library. I want to recognize Councilmember Mark Ridley Thomas for the vision to make sure this painting is in Los Angeles. because of what Los Angeles represents at this time, and also Netflix and all of the folks who help make this possible. So again, thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here. It's an even greater pleasure to turn the microphone over to my big brother on the Los Angeles City Council, my colleague to the east, the new 9th District's council member, the one and only Mr. Curran Price.
Thanks to my little brother. He's not little anymore. I tell you, he's standing tall, and we're so proud of what you do, your legacy. And I wasn't aware of your internship, man. So you know you got some stuff going on here. Special shout out to John. Thank you, Mrs. Abo, and for the library for just being an extraordinary source of inspiration and guidance for us. You know, the libraries are no longer libraries, are they? They're much more than that. And I was reminded, you know, coming down the elevator, I saw the cards on the wall. And so back in the day, that was the way you found out where you were. But the library was always a place to discover new places, discover new things. And that's why it is such an important part of our community now, you know, especially as we transition. You know, it was certainly an important part during this pandemic and continues to be. And so we just appreciate the unique role that the library plays. Special shout out also to Capri Maddox from our Department of Civil Rights and stuff. You know, but again, just underscores our intentionality. You know, we're serious about this stuff. We're serious about equity. We're serious about civil rights. We're serious about doing the right thing. You know, as our favorite John would say, just do the right thing. You know, it's easy to get caught up doing a bunch of other stuff. So special shout out to Jeff Clark for your artistry, and to Netflix for being a good corporate partner. We just appreciate that. And as Marquise mentioned, special shout out to our colleague Margaret Lee Thomas, who continues to be a visionary, continues to be a source of inspiration for many of us. John Lewis, you know, I say his name with great pride. With great pride. You know, fearless comes to mind. A towering civil rights leader who lit a fire that continues to burn this very day. And it's hot. Lewis handed down a handbook so that future generations would understand what they were up against. You know, and that Black Lives Matter says it all. What we were up against. Each chapter he left was deliberate. Each word on the page carefully crafted to open the eyes and hearts of the marginalized and to uplift the notion that equity is not an option, but it's a right. We're supposed to have it. It's not, you know, maybe that and something else. You're supposed to have it. He dedicated his life to advancing freedom, which was incrementally which opened the doors towards advancing black and brown and other Americans. So it's fitting that his portrait will hang here in the Central Library, where the community has the world from A to Z at their fingertips. And, you know, we can look up at John Lewis as an inspiration to keep us moving forward. Keep moving forward. Realizing this was one of the last photos of John Lewis, I'm struck by the notion that this is the precise moment where he handed the torch to the next generation. Take the reins. He left a legacy behind and a call to action to continue in the fight against injustices in the name of freedom, equality, and inclusion. You know, that's what he was all about all the time. With so much on the line, he will forever be cemented as the forefather who told us to never be afraid of getting into some good trouble, even if it means breaking cycles that came before us to create this unified nation. In the words of the great John Lewis, he reminds us to never give up, never give in, and never give out. Keep the faith and keep your eyes on the prize. Together, we can redeem the soul of America. John Robert Lewis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, council members. We appreciate it. And thanks also to Mark Ridley-Thomas, the CD10 staff. We appreciate their work in helping bring this incredible portrait to the library. We are so pleased now to have with us Capri Maddox, a colleague of mine, fellow general manager, the executive director of the Los Angeles Civil and Human Rights and Equity Department. Capri. Thank you.
So grateful to be here. And, you know, isn't it fitting that someone that couldn't get a library card now has their face in one of the most prestigious libraries in the nation? You know, finding a way to get in the way, that's what we should all be about. And, you know, sometimes you come to these events, and of course, I'm the general manager, executive director of the LA Civil Rights Department, but just to be inspired to just know that we can make a difference. There are people right now on the wrong side of the digital divide or the wrong side of a food desert that can make a difference in that space and have a long legacy. And that's what we're about here at the LA Civil Rights Department. Appreciate our librarian, Librarian Zabo. You have just always been there. You were the go-to shop when we need something. I see Lauren Skinner shaking her head because you are. And I know it's a burden and a lift on the staff, but you all always step up. Tom Bradley taught us that availability is the best ability, and our library is available to us. Even when we had the LA for All campaign and we needed to translate it into 18 different languages, how are we going to do that? The library. You all step up. You guys are available, you are ready, and you are there for the community, and you serve beyond the walls of where we store our books. So thank you so much for that. It's a great honor to join Mayor Eric Garcetti. Yes, we're sending him traveling mercies. But in our very esteemed council members that are here with us, we have, you know, Council Member Price and Council Member Marquise Harris-Dawson that you heard from earlier. But I definitely wanted to thank the visionary leadership of Council District 10 and Marquise and Mark Ridley-Thomas, as we have Ibert Schultz that is here representing the 10th District. Really wanted to thank Meg Deloach. Thank you so much, and the Netflix family for donating this art. I can just imagine how many people on the set would have loved to have this in their living room. So thank you for giving out a few black eyes as you drove over here with it. But today is a meaningful day. The libraries are a part of our beloved communities everywhere you go, and they're open to everyone, and they're open to all. And I'm really grateful that John Lewis has a place here. And for many, I was thinking about John Lewis and time, and for some, he was ahead of his time. He met Dr. Martin Luther King when he was 18 years old, and really developed into some of the roles that he had by the time he was 21. But, just thinking about our young people now, we need to invest in our young people, and we need to inspire them. And you don't have to be from the right side of the tracks to make a difference. So he was ahead of his time in that space. And then he was the moral compass for America in so many ways. He was right on time, delivering, serving, and making a difference. And then, now we're looking at him, and he is dealing with, so many things on the other side that he doesn't have to deal with because he stood the test of time. And, standing the test of time to inspire the next generation. There are people that weren't alive when John Lewis was living that will one day, be inspired by his work. at the Civil Rights Department, we have a conference room. It was built in September, opened in September, and it's actually the John Lewis Conference Center. So John Lewis is a part of what we do. And a funny note, even in my household, I am a wife and a mother of a 15-year-old boy. And I've put a lot of pieces of art in my son's room. And you know what happens when they get older. They dismiss it. But guess what? That John Lewis piece on the wall, he won't dare touch. So it means something to the next generation as well. And as we deal with so many obstacles, I just wanted to quickly say that, you know, these are tough times, and there are a lot of things that seem overwhelming. But when you look to someone like, you know, John Lewis, who did the impossible, who stood until he couldn't stand anymore, it's on us to stand, and it's on us to make a difference, and it's on us to know that we need to always be on time to make a difference and get in the way and get into good trouble. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Capri. As I mentioned, the person who was instrumental in gifting the library with this portrait is with us here today. I'd like to introduce Meg DeLoach, creator and executive producer of Netflix's show, A Family Reunion. She is also the executive producer and showrunner for The Neighborhood on CBS. Thank you so much for being with us.
Let me say first how envious I am of those of you in the room who actually got to meet John Lewis. I remember feeling so profoundly sad because he had a way, even through the television screen, of making you feel like you knew him, and I wanted to know him so much. On my show, Family Reunion, it's a multi-generational comedy about an African-American family. And one of the most important elements of our storytelling is to weave in Black history in hopes of enlightening our audience and also encouraging them and wanting them to learn more. So when John Lewis passed away, we wanted to find a way to weave through our stories this image so that children, adults, whatever, would say, who is this? What's going on? Why are they featuring this person? The main scene we used the mural in was of an African-American father and son. The son was going through great personal adversity, and we just thought, juxtaposing it against this man's image, showing you can get through anything. I really count John Lewis as being a reason that I'm able to be here, that I'm able to produce my own television show that allows me to celebrate Black history. Congressman Lewis left us with a legacy that inspires and encourages each one of us to make our own contribution, our own good trouble, to help change the world. And like our history, John Lewis should never be forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meg DeLoach, and thanks to Netflix as well. Finally, I'd like to introduce a few other people who are with us today who, frankly, help make it happen every day here in this building and at the 72 branches of the LA Public Library. The president of our Board of Library Commissioners, Biknot Kao, is with us today. Thank you so much. Kren Malone, who is director of Central Library, who I mentioned earlier. Kren. Ana Campos, who is the assistant director here at Central Library. Thank you for being with us. And Janae Brown, our director of emerging technologies and collections. And Janae is also our racial equity officer here at LA Public Library. And also mentioned earlier, we just can't thank you enough, Ibert Schultz with Council District 10. Thank you for helping to make this happen and initiating those communications with the library. It's so proud to be here today and to see this happen, and we really appreciate that. So thank you so much.